In the early 31st millennium, the Mechanicum of Mars was a sprawling empire of human progress. The tech priests of this era actively pushed the boundaries of science and engineering, bearing little resemblance to the stagnant, prayer-chanting cult they would eventually become. The pinnacle of this era was Magma City, built directly into the Avalantin caldera, harnessing the raw geothermal power of an active volcano. It hung suspended above a lake of molten rock, supported entirely by immense tectonic pillars. It was ruled by Adept Koriel Zeth, an anomaly among the Martian hierarchy. Zeth ran her forge using pure empirical science. She stripped away the holy unguents, the binaric chanting, and the religious dogma. In her city, diagnostics were tested through reason, not prayer. While other forges increasingly leaned into the religious rituals of the machine cult, Zeth's technicians achieved higher output and lower failure rates through mechanics alone. In the Avalantin caldera, the empirical method was producing results that ritual could not match, but that vision was fragile. At the top of the Martian hierarchy, Fabricator-General Kelbor-Hal harbored a deep resentment toward the Emperor of mankind. The Emperor demanded massive production quotas to fuel his Great Crusade, while strictly forbidding the research of highly theoretical and dangerous technologies. Kelbor-Hal and his closest allies quietly ignored those bans. In the shadows of the forged city Mondas Gamma, they began constructing an entity known as the Kaban Machine. This diagram breaks down exactly why their creation was classified as Heretek Omega, the highest order of tech heresy. Standard imperial robotics rely on a machine spirit, a hybrid of biological components and rigid programming. The Kaban Machine was an abominable intelligence, a fully sentient, self-learning neural matrix. It could think, experience emotion, and rewrite its own rules, making it completely unpredictable and devoid of human empathy. Building an artificial intelligence meant crossing a line the Imperium had drawn to prevent human extinction. The highest authorities on Mars were willing to throw away their ethical safeguards to secure ultimate power. That hunger for power provided the perfect opening for rebellion. Warmaster Horus offered Kelbor-Hal the access codes to the Vaults of Moravec, an ancient repository sealed by the Emperor earlier. Opening those inviolate doors released a demonic digital pathogen known as the Scrap Code. To understand the damage this virus caused, you have to look at how Mars communicated. The planet relied on the noosphere, a pervasive, augmented reality network that linked the minds of every tech priest directly to the machines around them. It was their primary sense of the world. This map shows how the Scrap Code weaponized that connection. This semi-sentient code functioned on warp logic, manifesting as a mathematical impossibility, binary with 2s thrown in, that forced cogitator spirits into immediate logical collapse. As red patterns overwrite these nodes, the code bypasses firewalls by self-modifying its own instructions. Tech priests, defined by their access to these data pools, lost their sense of self, while automated conveyors and plasma reactors began targeting the very people who operated them. Zeth recognized the threat immediately. To protect Magma City, she initiated a hard disconnect, completely severing her forge's network lines from the rest of the planet's infrastructure. The forge survived the initial digital onslaught, but the cost was absolute isolation. Magma City went from being an open beacon of progress into a locked-down, claustrophobic bunker, cut off from a world that had literally gone insane. The digital attack was only the first wave. Kelbor-Hal soon sent his physical forces to claim Zeth's forge. Hordes of traitor Skitarii, heavily modified, twisted cyborg soldiers bristling with dark energy, began their march across the Typhon Causeway, the massive stone bridge leading to Magma City's Vulcan Gate. Waiting for them at the gate were the Knights of House Taranis. Piloting towering, ancient mechanical suits painted in deep blue and silver, these nobles formed a rigid defensive line, holding back the overwhelming tide of corrupted infantry. But then the Kaban Machine arrived on the front lines. The sentient war robot possessed a tactical intellect unconstrained by human fear, hesitation, or the rigid rituals of the machine cult. It actively learned and adapted in real time, calculating the exact weaknesses in the loyalist defenses. The battle became a terrifying mismatch. The archaic, formation-based tactics of the noble knights were systematically picked apart by the cold, logic-defying onslaught of a self-aware intellect. The sheer numbers of the corrupted hordes, combined with the relentless computational violence of the Kaban Machine, eventually shattered the defensive lines. The traitor forces breached the inner sanctum. Koriel Zeth was left with a final, terminal calculation. She knew that if her research and her pristine forge fell into the hands of the Dark Mechanicum, the consequences for humanity would be disastrous. She chose to initiate a sequence that deactivated the city's massive thermal stabilizers. The structural supports holding Magma City above the caldera groaned and gave way. The entire forge began a slow, agonizing descent. Explosive bursts of orange magma and venting plasma flares consumed the lower manufactories as the city sank into the river of fire. Zeth remained inside, ensuring her enemies claimed nothing. As the lava closed over the final spires, it took Zeth's research and her unique version of the noosphere with it. With the forge submerged, the empirical branch of Martian science was silenced, leaving no active countermodel to the ritualized orthodoxy that would soon dominate the planet. The Schism of Mars left the survivors permanently traumatized. When the loyalists eventually reclaimed the Red Planet, they found the greatest libraries of human knowledge either burned in the Titan Wars or hopelessly corrupted by the scrap code. They took a harsh lesson from the slaughter. The progressive openness of the pre-heresy Mechanicum was no longer seen as a virtue. It was an open door that invited demonic possession. Unrestricted innovation had almost caused their extinction. This flowchart illustrates the ideological trap that defines the modern Adeptus Mechanicus. Because the scrap code weaponized independent thought, any form of innovation is now routed directly to vulnerability, while ritual routes to preservation. To survive, they lock artificial intelligence inside biological servitor brains. They route all interaction with technology through strict repetitive rituals and binaric chanting, using dogma as a manual firewall to verify a machine's integrity and guarantee its preservation. The tragedy of the Martian Schism wasn't just the burning of libraries. It transformed a society of innovators into a terrified cult, guarding a decaying empire through rote repetition, because they no longer trust the machines they are sworn to serve.